Hi, we're here today with Penny Bradley at the Awakening Cosmic Reality Show. Hi, Penny.
Hi, Ileana.
How are you doing today?
It's been a little hectic, but we're calm now.
Excellent. So there's been a lot of stuff coming out about Mars and there being child slave labor and child sex labor happening on Mars, and also Google Mars came out with that there's a supposed base in one of the in the craters in the Gale crater. I know it looked fake. It's not. It's in the Aeolus Mensa region. It's an ICC base 5. Um, and I mapped that last year as well. So when I saw this, it looked like an April Fool's joke, but it isn't. There's actually a base there. It's not in the Gale crater. It's next door in the same region.
Okay.
So this stuff is very interesting, and you've been talking about being on Mars and seeing all
hmm
the slave labor happening, and you were in the interplanetary corporate conglomerate, and you were a pilot.
No,
No?
no. I was in Mars Defense
Oh,
Force.
sorry.
I was military.
Okay, sorry for that. So Mars Defense Force, but you know about the interplanetary corporate
Yes,
conglomerate and what they do.
yes.
I was the one in the interplanetary corporate conglomerate and saw their Mars colonies and bases. So sorry for the little mix-up.
It's no harm done. You and I were in different projects. You were in Monarch Solutions and the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate.
Yes.
I was. I have 4 altars that I have partial memory of. And the first one that I have the most memory of is Penelope Valkyrin, and she was a pilot in Mars Defense Force and transferred to Nacht Waffen as a navigator, and that was as punishment because I had an emotional meltdown. Mars Defense Force felt I was untrustworthy after that. Um, so they punished me by sending me to the Germans. The second altar that I remembered is also called Penelope, Lieutenant Bradley, and she is in Kruger. And for those who don't know, Kruger and Monarch are competing mercenary companies, and both of them use clone bodies with consciousness transfers. ICC and the regular German fleet, which was what I was in, both use your natural body from Earth. They bring you there and then age regress you home. But Lou's going to be popping back and forth behind me. He won't
Okay.
talk, but he's
Yeah.
going to be. He lives
Yeah.
here too, and it's a small apartment.
Yeah, it's okay.
Um, but Kruger and Monarch both use clone bodies, and they transfer your consciousness and wake up the altar that they want. And when you're not in that body, the body's in stasis, which I don't know about what Monarch does, but Kruger bodies in stasis are generally in the tanks while they're being stored. I have a second Kruger altar that I can't remember what her name is. The first one, Penelope Bradley, flies a fighter ship, and she's heavily augmented. Do you remember the movie Elysium?
Yes. Yes, I do.
You remember the surgically implanted exoskeleton?
Yes. Yeah.
She has one of those.
Yeah.
She also has a chip behind the left ear that looks a lot like a Bluetooth, only it's permanently installed. And she has, I'm not sure what it looks like. I know what it feels like. It feels like a big chunk of metal right here. And it's what gives the virtual reality screen. And it gives, because she's a pilot, it gives temperature and airspeed and wind direction. And if a person comes into her field of vision, it gives a readout about that person. Everything, you know. If I saw you as her, if I were in her and I saw you, it would give me a readout and it would warn me that you were Monarch.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're competing companies. They're often rented out to different factions and end up being potential enemies.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I would be warned that you were a potential hostile. So that's part of what the readout does. But it's this thing that's right here. And she she dresses a lot like Indiana Jones. With the khaki pants and the leather jacket and this cap. And it's not as fancy as Jones' fedora, but yeah, that's how the fighter pilots dress in Kruger. And you and I are both admins on the Secret Space Program group. One of the other admins has seen me as her.
Okay.
He says, you know, in that altar, you're really rough. And I'm like, well, she's military. The third altar I know about is she's actually a cyborg. She's been, that clone has been through a factory like the one that you served in. And when I'm in that, it's just awareness. There is no emotion at all. All of the thinking processes are handled by the computers. So it's very cold and sterile and functional, and I only have an altar in it because it requires a consciousness to run the tech. Mm-hmm. And she drives a shuttle. It transports people. The feeling I have is mostly between the moon and Mars. So she's just going back and forth. Now there has to be an awareness, because for lack of a better term, there are critters in space. There are beings who live in space, not attached to a planet. And they get in the way. They get curious about the shuttles, and they'll come and they'll check you out. And some of them are hostile, and some of them think we're pretty and food. And I'm not aware of any that are exceptionally sentient. So it's like being in the ocean, and these beings are they're kind of the equivalent of fish.
Yeah, like, and some of them are plasma beings, so they're attracted to the warp engines. They want to feed off of that warp engine plasma as well. So, like octopuses. Yes. So, I've heard of those. So, and some of them were featured in the Star Trek movies too.
Yeah, there was a really. I remember the pilot for Next Generation that they encountered one of those beings, the ones that was more like a manta,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them are outrageously huge. They're just going through, doing their thing, and
Yeah.
the
And
best thing is to just change course.
yeah, and not go through their territory because they are protective of territory. If it's their territory, their space, like you see them, you turn away and go another route, basically.
Yeah, well, we're the same way. I mean, I don't like people running through my house.
Yeah, nobody would. It's privacy. It's your home. It's your place of comfort. So of course, and same in space. It works the same way.
um, the fourth altar that I've become aware of, I don't think I don't think that she's still active, but she was monarch, and she was a sex slave on Mars, and she dyed her hair strawberry blonde, and after I did my first interview last September, I started getting messages on Facebook from men who remembered her. And a couple of them have written out these really long, almost romantic memories of being with her. But the personality thing that keeps coming through from them is that she's drugged. So she doesn't have a lot of awareness to her.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked because sexual abuse is part of the mind fragment process.
Yeah, they create, like, they put women into these simulated type of programs where there's men and the women learn to be dominatrixes. They tie the men down and they flog them. That's done to make the woman dominant. So she enforces her dominance always to make her tough. Like, that's something that I've heard about being done. So these women think they're dominatrixes, so they dominate. They're to get their male energy to come forward and to be tough in the programs, and they sexual. That's like it's sexual energy that's used to basically get the women indoctrinated into the program on Mars. Some of the altars are like that. They're very dominant. They're dominatrixes, and they will punish men because that's part of the simulated indoctrination.
The German program took a very different view of sex than the other programs did.
How so?
The men were expected to be sexually active. It was a way to keep the internal aggressions down, and there's a side effect to it too. You're less psychic if you're sexually active, and other than the people who were psychic weapons, they were expected to be. And so a lot of the monarch sex slaves were used by the Germans for that purpose. And those ones were generally passive and, whatever you want.
Yeah, because they're just, that's their role
that
to
that
be,
was their that was their role was, and on the ships, if there wasn't an available female, then the men were expected to be homosexual, because they were to do this on whatever was supposed to be their optimal body schedule. And it varied from man to man what they were expected to do.
Yeah.
And I remember Valkyrie got in a lot of trouble for sex because I had been genetically modified, and they didn't want me to have babies.
Mm-hmm.
And so they gave me injections so that I would lose my sex drive. But, and because my meltdown was I had a lover, and I was sent to check this raptor nest on Mars, and I found my lover being dinner for them, and I just lost it. You know, normal female human response.
Yeah.
Except that I was mind linked to a computer that was running a ship that was very much like an F-15, and I fired all the weapons because the computer felt the panic and said, let's shoot. And the Germans had to rephone and go back. They got the coordinates from the ship's computer for when the first firing was, and they went back just before that and rescued all the humans that were there.
So some time travel was involved to reverse the firing of the ship.
Rephoning is time travel to a certain set of coordinates where you rescue humans from an attack. You don't necessarily stop what happened, but you rescue the humans out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're able to stop the event, but I got into so much trouble over that. And after that, I was sent to a ship. The records show it was the Solheimen. No, I don't know what it means. My impression is that it was some officer's last name. But I was mind linked with the computer for 25 years. So my memories of that time are difficult. Because I was there and aware, but not all my memories were stored in my own head. A lot of them were stored in the computer. But yeah, what has been coming out about the child slavery on Mars, it's not so true now as it was in my generation. I was 4 when I was kidnapped and mind fractured. I was kept at Langley for most of the 5 years of my breaking. Stuart Swerdlow talks about that we were deliberately broken into a 13 by 13 by 13 cube, that gave them that many partitions that they could use as altars. Except that's not entirely true. They can only use half of them as altars because the other half are filled with trauma. Mm-hmm. So I have potentially half of that as altars. And in the last 4 years, I've reintegrated 28 altars.
Wow.
I've been making progress on getting it put back together, but compared to the mess that they made, it's like a drop in the bucket. But how they fractured me was, the initial stuff was by drowning, and I was kept, Langley was set up like a hospital prison. We had small rooms, we had a cot. We generally wore children's pajamas, not the jumpsuits that you talked about, but they were white cotton pajamas. And we had bare feet, and nobody combed our hair. You know, there was no grooming, no treating us like we were potential people. We were just there, and we were one to a room, so we'd have no one to talk to, and there were cameras, and they didn't call us by our names. We were called by our room number. The rare occasions we got to spend time in the cafeteria, we weren't allowed to talk to anybody. They had a regeneration tank, which in the 1950s there weren't very many of them, but they had one. And so they made it very clear to us that death was not an option. They didn't just do the drown you and almost dead. They went ahead and killed you and put you back in the tank. They would shoot you in the heart. They would shoot you between the eyes. They made me shoot other kids. They made me kill animals with my mind. They had a wall that was probably 6 inches, maybe 8 inches deep. And they had a section of it that was open, and it was big enough to put a little kid in. And they would just shove me in there and then nail a piece of plywood over me and wait for me to run out of air. And sometimes I would wake up where that they were doing CPR, and other times I would wake up in the tank. My most vivid memories are of that time. Most of the altars that I've reintegrated are trauma from that time, so those memories are really in your face. I was raped regularly, and I was 4 years old. That was part of the process. They starved you, they kept you cold, they didn't take care of you, there was no affection, you were killed regularly and brought back to life and forced to kill others and kill animals, and they pushed you to beyond human limits. And then they took us to Montauk. In my generation, you went to Montauk first. And if you survived the time tunnel, you got to go into space. a good 70% of the kids didn't make it through Montauk. They came back so crazy that the people who were running Montauk just tossed them live into the incinerator. Because of the nature of my psychic abilities, I didn't go time travel. I went interdimensional. And they had done regression hypnosis on me, and they knew who I was at soul level. And they should have known that that's what I would do. But instead they got pissed. And at all of these things there were ETs. Usually Draco, but not always. But there was a Draco male warrior class who was at Montauk with us. And he actually stopped the tech from tossing me into the incinerator and told him to chip me instead so that they could find me. I remember him saying, "This one is more valuable than the others because of the interdimensional capabilities." And I was 6 when they chipped me. As far as I know, that chip is still in me, but I've been doing some work lately to get... I can't take them out because they're embedded in my head. Mm-hmm. Now, it would kill me to take them out, but I've been working with someone who has hacked into a system, and he's been turning the chips off. So I was getting more abductions from Grays because, well, why aren't your chips working? So, what happened? Your chips have failed. What's the matter? You know, what did you do? Yeah, well, hey, you know, I got tired of being watched all the time. I got tired of being monitored. I got tired of being shot at. Mm-hmm. I've been shot, 8 times in the last year. And you get tired of it.
Yeah, and you had that microwave shot that came at you, and you traced it back to Dulce base. Mm-hmm. Because they attacked you. What was that like? What happened there?
You see this board that's standing behind me?
Yeah.
The other side of it is lined with metal. Mm-hmm. Because in that wall they placed a device. And this is a rental. We can't tear up the wall and take out the device. So we put a block. Mm-hmm. I haven't been shot since the block has been there. So we know this worked. But on that wall, we have 4 smart meters because this is an apartment and it's for all 4 apartments. Mm-hmm. And the control for that device was in the smart meter, and it was being remote controlled through Dulce. Mm-hmm. But what's in the wall is a microwave device, and it was aimed at me. So this was someone broke into... Okay, the first time I got shot with this thing was in January. And so it was somewhere Christmas time, they put it in. Deliberately aimed it at me. So it was April 13th. I was sitting here at my desk, using my computer. and I started feeling this ache in my back. It was going through my chair. I've got an upholstered office chair, and it was going right through it. And I'm like, that hurts. And then it suddenly got really hot. And when I'm attacked, my psi abilities work because Langley put them behind an adrenaline firewall. So when I'm attacked, the firewall breaks, and I can follow the energy back to find source and original source. And I saw the ET cave at Dulce. I believe they're tall grays.
Yeah, that's what I saw as well.
Great big cave. Well, I have some weapons I'm hooked up into. None of them are finesse weapons. They're major blow up big areas. So you can't just target the person or being that's targeting you. You target the whole area. And this wasn't going away. It wasn't stopping. Normally I'm only shot for a few seconds. This lasted a half an hour. And by the time it was done, I was cooked. Amazingly, I had no scorch marks on my body, nothing in 3D to show, but it was painful, and it took me a good 6 weeks to heal from it. But yeah, I targeted the being that was remote controlling, and what I did contact the man who has hacked into the system, and asked him to evacuate any innocents that were in the area. And I was told that a ship was in the area and had actually brought the people out.
Mm-hmm.
So I was given the all clear, and I waited for that before I targeted them. I was just sitting there holding until I was told all of the innocents had been evacuated.
Mm-hmm.
And then I let the weapon go. It was it was like a laser, and I targeted where the energy signature was, and at first the cave glowed white from the laser, and then it turned yellow, and then red, and then it was black, and nothing. And I was talking about it in our admin's chat room,
Mm-hmm.
because I was freaked out. It's not every day that you do something like that. And one of the admins wanted 3D proof. She later told me that it was so that to back up my story, so that we could talk about it. And You know, how do you get 3D proof of a base that people know about, but the government's still denying it exists?
Yeah.
So I checked for earthquake records, and there were earthquakes along the fault line north of it, but far enough north that you could say, okay, it wasn't that. The earthquakes were in Colorado instead of New Mexico. And so I asked in the group for remote viewers, and you were one of them that responded, and I believe you did a video about it.
Yeah. They actually have an earthquake generator, so they have a seismic shaker and a seismic lab, and you destroyed that thing. You disabled it when you sent out your laser beam to the underground cave. The base is still there, but you destabilized the frequency energy of the earthquake shaker, of the generator machine. So you basically shut down their earthquake maker.
Well, that's good, because according to everything I've read, they had planned to mess with the New Madrid fault, and hopefully I stopped that.
Yeah, they couldn't activate. They were like, oh my god, this energy is now destabilized around the base. If they tried using that on the surface base, if they tried using that earthquake generator machine, they would have blown up the whole base and themselves right along with it. So they can't, if they use that, if they try to activate that earthquake generator because it's malfunctioning and the energy around it is destabilized now, so the magnetic fields around that base area where the machine is, they're very, they're not stable, so if they try to use that thing, they'll blow themselves up in any area surrounding the base. So that laser beam, you didn't just destroy the cave system underneath the base where you were hit from, you actually also destroyed on the surface of the base their machine, their earthquake generator.
I told you none of them in my arsenal are finesse weapons.
Yeah.
So I have to really feel threatened to access them.
Yeah. So even though that earthquake that you read about was in Colorado, those guys probably generated the earthquake from Dulce.
Wow.
They have the earthquake machine, so they probably created the earthquakes. And they have, it's a targeting system. They could target any location they want. It doesn't just have to be around the base. It could be further out.
Nobody needs that kind of a weapon.
No, and I saw the tall grays in a cave, actually, and I put it in the video, and some ships as well, beyond the speed of light ships that didn't look human. They were ET technology. So everything that you're saying corroborates in what I remote viewed. And you didn't let me publicly know what you did. You just said New Mexico area.
Actually, what I said was about that date or since and the Dulce base.
Yeah.
And that way remote viewers would know this is a base, put up some shielding.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the coordinates, or I would have just given those. But I didn't want the remote viewers to go in blind, because there are booby traps for the major bases.
Yes, there are, and I felt my chest in pain when I was going to do the remote viewing energetically. I felt the pain of them blasting me, but I bypassed that. The energy shields that they have with their own energy weaponry, psychic, because they have the guards, they have the psychic guards. So they blasted me twice. I bypassed it and went in to see it. And you didn't tell me anything about the grays. You didn't tell me anything about the cave. You didn't even know that there was a seismic generator there.
No, I didn't.
So you didn't tell me anything like that. Just New Mexico, Dulce.
I didn't want to skew what people saw.
Exactly.
I didn't even say to the group that anything had actually happened. I just said a time and a place.
Yeah.
And at least, well, Boris saw the explosion when he linked into the time. So he thought that I had completely blown the place up, completely, all of it. But I had actually, after the fact, hoped that I had gotten rid of the Hall of Horrors. That's pretty bad and should have been shut down decades ago.
Yeah. Well, there definitely was a blast. Their earthquake machine is gone. That cave is gone. So, like, I saw that cave, and the ETs were there. I saw the residual signatures of what they were doing, and it's despicable what they do in these. And it was secret underground. I saw the surface and the underground where all the labs are. So the underground Dulce base, that's what I was seeing. I was seeing underground, not surface. But because they have two facilities, the surface level and the underground, what you're talking about, the Hall of Horrors. And the ET stuff.
My understanding is that President Carter declared war on that because in his administration he found out that they had 30,000 American women in there for their genetic stuff, and that he was horrified, and that was the Battle of Dulce that Phil Schneider talked about.
Yes.
That Phil Schneider was part of the group that went in there then, and so it's not been a good place.
No. No. And the tall grays were definitely there. The energy I could feel of them, and I'm like, psychically, give me a picture. And I went on the internet and I spent about 3 hours looking for that as accurate as I could get to the picture of those tall grays. I'm like, I need an exact image, and it has to be in a cave system because that's what it was in, what you shot at and got rid of underground. It was in a cave system. So, it is almost like there is corroborating evidence of what you did, and it came out in that remote viewing. But you got rid of more than you thought. You also destroyed their earthquake generator. So
Good.
and you did your research. You're like, were there any earthquakes around? So yeah, and
Well, if you make a big explosion underground, there should be an earthquake.
yeah. Except those guys actually had an earthquake generator that they were using, and a seismic laboratory testing the results of using that earthquake generator. So it's synchronistic. It just all came together to have a look at what was there, what we got rid of, what's still there, and maybe we could get rid of it too.
Well, the hard part is that my abilities are behind an adrenaline firewall. If they weren't, I could probably go through and get rid of all of these messes.
Yeah.
I kind of have, on one hand, I know that what the tall grays were doing was horrific, but I kind of have a little compassion for them because they've been genetically modified, and there are certain things that they have to have supplemented or they die. And with my age regression sickness, I have to have certain supplements or I'll die. And it's like, I can kind of sympathize with the position they're in, but I don't think that we should have to pay for them.
Yeah, because what they do, they take genetic stuff from us genetic stock from our bodies and use it for themselves
Mhm.
to power their own selves. And they do experiments and they kidnap people, genetically modify us, poke us, prod us. So, and that because the U.S. government made an agreement for that to happen in order to have advanced technology that they could reverse engineer.
Yeah, that's the biggie. That's the underlying problem is why do we need all of this high tech that we never needed before? And I've been doing my research because I can't remember all the details. I've only got 30% maximum on any of my altars. So I've been doing a lot of research and I ran across this thing. I haven't been able to find the link again, but it was where President Eisenhower was told point blank that one of the ET races had laid claim to Earth and was terraforming it for their needs, and that humans would, as they were in 1952, would not survive it. And so Ike panicked, and he told the CIA, quote, do whatever it takes to make some of us survive it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the underlying order that created all of this. That's why the race for higher tech is so that we can eventually fight that ET race. And I believe it was the Draco, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've read Ileana Dean's material, Voyagers 1 and 2. She also talks about the Greys agenda, the Zeta Reticuli.
The Greys are in... The Zetas and the Tall Greys have both been genetically modified by the Draco to where they cannot live as they are.
Yeah.
The Zetas have also reached the end of their clone capacity. You can only clone the same cells so many times.
Yeah.
And they've reached that point. And so, while I have sympathy for their plight, why are we having to fix them?
Yeah, we should be taking care of our own planet, our own resources, fixing all the damage that's been done to the environment, to the pollution, ending hunger, all kinds of stuff. But
we have the tech in this secret space program to do all of that.
Yeah, but they don't
we have tech that will take the radiation out of the system, that would fix Fukushima, that would fix Chernobyl, that would fix 3 Mile Island, that would fix Hanford, and all of the leaking power plants all over the planet. It would fix all of the sites where they've tested atomic weapons.
Yeah.
But making the planet more radioactive was part of the terraforming for the Draco. Making it hotter was part of the terraforming. Making it drier was part of the terraforming. These things were done on purpose.
Yeah.
Burning fossil fuels, when we have solar, we have wave energy, they have Tesla tech. They can pull energy out of the fabric of space.
Yeah.
and they're still burning coal and oil.
Money.
Well, it's not even money. It's set up to keep it warmer for the Draco.
But it's interesting. If it's the Draco that want to terraform the planet, we're not seeing the Draco on the surface of the planet. They're all hiding so they can continue their agenda of whatever they're doing.
There have been sightings of some of them. I've seen photos on Facebook passed around. People are saying, is this real? Is this fake? And the general consensus is that it's fake. But when I look at it, I'm going, that's an alpha drac.
Yeah.
You know. And I've seen plenty of them because they work with the Germans. So I've been in Ares Prime headquarters and had an alpha drac come in and just raise holy hell because we violated part of the treaty that they had with the Mantids. And this guy just went absolutely berserk. I mean, they talk about Draco are unemotional. They're wrong. This guy was pissed. And he came in, and I was a lieutenant, and I was in the room, and he came in, and the captain took the brunt of it, and this drac just gutted him. And the medics collected up what was left after the drac left and dumped him into the regen tank. But he'd been a real asshole before then, and he had a humility about him afterwards. And we didn't violate the treaty again.
And what are these Alpha Draconians look like? Do you remember?
They're not as pretty as Corey Good draws them, but they're 13 to 15 feet tall. That's what, 4 meter range?
Mm-hmm.
And they're the alphas, the royals, are white and have wings. Some of them have short tails, but they look like humanoid lizards. Yeah, the warrior class are a little bit shorter. They probably average around 12 feet. And they're generally brown. They can come in other colors, but they're generally brown. And the movie Jupiter Ascending had them nailed. That's what they look like. That's what they move like. I have never seen one that submissive to a human. They had it backwards. Jupiter Ascending said that humans were in charge, and they're not.
No.
The Dracs are.
Yeah. And
then there's the worker class that I dealt with most, and they're about 9 feet tall, 7 to 9 feet tall, and they're generally green. They can be other colors. All of these can be other colors: reds, blues, tans.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are black.
Oh yeah, black Drazo reptilians.
There are 7 races of them, but I've really only encountered 3. The worker class, in a lot of ways, are just like humans. They have They have a really wicked sense of humor. Um, they're a lot like the humans that work all week and then go to the ball game, watch the ball game on TV, sit there, drink, you know. They're like that. Most of the races I encountered, the common Joe Blow is like the common Joe Blow human.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain racial tendencies, but the individuals are generally just getting by. Now, the race as whole can have an agenda that's totally against what humans want. And it just blows my mind whenever people like Dr. Greer talk about that they're all positive. No, they're not. No, they're not. There are wars going on in space that have been going on for millions of years.
Yeah.
And they all have an agenda, and, you know, they all talk about they're evil. I think they're all right. The only thing is that they have, for some reason, none of them have felt a need to destroy humans. And they want to use us, they want to take over our planet, but none of them have felt a need to destroy us. And that's the only thing that I can see right about what Dr. Greer says.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing them in space, they're not any better and they're not any worse than humans.
Yeah.
You know, they're 3D. They
Yeah.
live in duality like we do.
Oh, for sure.
A few of them are really good, a few of them are really bad. Most of them are just getting by.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was on the ICC Mars bases, I remember there being reptilian human hybrids that were bred, that were working along with the human personnel. Their face looked human, but they had like bumps, ridges, and scales on the forehead and along here, and it was either green or translucent blue, and their eyes were huge, either green or blue, and hands also had the reptilian features with the claws and the scales, but they looked humanoid on the face and the rest of the body, so they were hybrids, reptilian hybrids working with the humans. There's also reptilian insectoids working with the Dark Fleet. So that weren't totally reptilian. So there's variations. I think they've been bred in different variations of hybridization as well.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're not pure reptilians anymore. In some occasions, like the ICC prefers to work with the reptilian hybrids instead of the full reptilian Draco. They don't want the Draco in their business. So they'll work with the reptilian human hybrids instead. It's just easier, or with the reptilian insectoids in the Dark Fleet, because they're not, those guys, the reptilian human hybrids, they're not as pushy. They still keep the line going, the agenda, but they're not pushy as the full-blown Dracos.
Full-blown Dracos have a mental presence that is so powerful. Full humans are not wired to be around them.
Yeah.
Their very presence for an extended period of time is so high energy that it will kill you just being around them long term.
Yeah.
That's why German fleet keeps humans on human ships and the Draco on Draco ships, and if there's a liaison, it's a hybrid.
Yeah.
Because the hybrids are not as intense.
Yeah.
And if a Draco decides to interrogate you, that mental presence, you cannot lie to that being. They go in, they know everything you've ever done, they know every thought in your head, they know every intention you have. There
Yeah.
is no lying to them.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a presence that if you try, squish! You know, I've been interrogated by them. I've been interrogated by mantids. Mantids do the same thing, but they're gentler. You don't feel threatened.
Yeah. Yeah, Zagor, the reptilian sectoid hybrid that was a liaison for the Dark Fleet, he liaisoned with me to see the Dark Fleet cities outside this solar system. He kept asking me questions like, how did I feel about seeing the Dark Fleet cities? Like, what are my impressions? But he wasn't pushing into my mind. He just kept asking me questions over and over again to see my reaction. So he wasn't forceful about the reactions. And he was like, I don't enjoy working for the reptilians, for the full Dracos. I want my own freedom, but unfortunately, I'm under their control partially, so I work for them. But I enjoy that I work with the Dark Fleet as a liaison and not all the time with the Draco. He actually shared that with me.
Cool. When I started the process of turning off my CIA chips, I had an encounter where I was debriefed by a mantid. And it was not in 3D. And it was completely psychic. It was in 4D, and it was psychic, and she was in my head, and she was asking me what I thought I was doing. And I said, I no longer consent to being part of this. I said, I want to retire. I want to be done. I want to be able to live my human life on Earth in peace. Be a grandma. Be happy. She asked me, are you going to do harm? And I said, only if I'm attacked. You attack me first? Yeah, I'm going to do harm. You leave me alone? Nobody's going to be bothered. You attack me, I'm going to attack property first. Because I really don't want to do harm. I don't want to kill anybody. I spent how many lifetimes killing beings? How many lifetimes? How many altars have you guys used? How many lifetimes have you put me through being a murderer? Murdering sentient beings of whatever race. I'm done. And it was kind of the feeling she gave back was surprise and sympathy. And when she left, she wished me luck. But yeah, I've withdrawn consent. I've withdrawn total, complete consent. I do not consent to any of this. I don't want to be part of it. I don't intend to be part of it. I've done I've been told about a 5th altar, so I've done at least 5 lifetimes of service. I have no idea how many years they take me for each of these things they pull me out at night. Because it's in a quantum time loop.
Yep.
You can be you're taken over and over and over and over and over and over. I've been taken as many as 4 times in one night.
And
Or however long they wanted. You know? That's one of the things people that listen to this, well, okay, I'm going to use the example of Corey Good. He came out and he said, I did a 20 and back. Well, then he remembered another 20 and back. That's not unreasonable. You know, I was kidnapped and I was mind fractured and trained in 5 years. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of expense on the part of DARPA or CIA, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
That's a lot of expense to train someone. Okay, then they used me for 50 years and brought me back to the original. So I had a 55-year circuit there. And that was a quantum time loop in this body. Mm-hmm. Okay? The others, the one I've been told about but I don't personally remember is also in this body. And that one's a CIA asset. But Tomas has talked about it publicly. Tomas is the founder of the SSP group. And he has talked about why would they invest that kind of time and money and effort and only use you once.
Well, they can put you backwards in time, forwards in time. They can age regress you and use you over and over and over again.
They can come up with clones and transfer your consciousness.
Yeah.
And bring you back where they use a personal portal tech. And it's like the jump gates at, I blanked on the name, Stargate.
Yeah.
It's like the jump gates from Stargate, except it's little. And it's big enough for 2 people.
Yeah.
And they open a portal, they come in, they grab you, they put you in it, they take you to wherever they're going. So your physical body is actually gone. It's not just your mind.
Yeah.
And your natural physical body is put into a tank for the duration of them using your consciousness, which they sit you in this thing, something like a chair.
The trip chair.
And they transfer your consciousness into the clone, and then they put your natural body into the tank so you don't die. Mm-hmm. And they keep you. The feeling I've got is that 20 and back is the norm now, because so many in my generation went insane. And then they take the clone into the chair, and they transfer your consciousness back into your body, and then they put the clone in the tank, and then they bring you back. And they have the coordinates for when they took you, so they bring you back to the same time, so your conscious mind isn't supposed to register that you were gone, except the barriers between my altars are coming apart. So I'm remembering flying a plane. well, it looks, kind of feels like a plane, but it's a fighter,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm shooting at other ships. I remember that. I remember being on a large ship, a mothership that my fighter is stationed in, and being on the bridge and being told you're supposed to go here and here and here and do this and this and this. I'm like, okay. That altar is really spunky, by the way. And she really enjoys shooting enemies. But I think that's programming.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I started waking up in some of these things. I woke up in an altar on Mars. That was when I blew up that cyborg factory. Was because I, Penny, 3D Earth citizen, woke up inside the altar that was, who knows what she was supposed to be doing. But I woke up inside it and freaked. Well, the freaking out broke the adrenaline firewall, and I just fried the whole place. I heard somebody, I don't know who it was, but some psychic person had heard my interview and was in an interview with somebody else and talked about that they had remote viewed me blowing it up and then had found it on Google Mars and that there was a big black spot. So I'm like, okay, I actually did do that.
Well, they have a lot of these cybernetic lab factories. I call them the meat labs, because what they do is they take humans and they fuse you with cybernetic parts, like Elysium is an example. So you have metal, titanium, exoskeletons, you have chips, you have whatever, Neuralink implants, whatever. You're hanging there. I remember women hanging on the assembly line with metal hooks in their backs and just bleeding everywhere, and the body just hangs until they're ready to augment you with the tech. And if you die, they might keep your soul, revive you, and keep your soul in the body, or they might put another soul into that cybernetic being, and you have to relearn how to walk and talk because you're adjusting to the tech. There's a new soul in that cyborg, and it has to learn how to adjust, because the Fourth Reich, they were the ones that had the soul catcher technology. They developed it, and they could keep a soul in an electromagnetic stasis field tank for as much as they needed, and then just put that soul into another body, either a clone or a cyborg.
The soul trap things. If your soul is in there for 6 months or longer, your memory's gone. Then they have to retrain them.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the things that bothers me most about this tech is they're starting to use clones for everything. With the unstated thing that a clone is just a body. They're not. If they were raised as human beings, they would have their own soul, they would have their own mind, they would be a full, complete human being, just like identical twins or triplets. And what they're doing is basically possession. They're destroying or suppressing the original inhabitant and possessing it with this other imprinted soul. And on a spiritual level, I'm finding this really repugnant. Now, my ex-husband was murdered last December. I had been given a threat from my CIA handler in October before that he was going to be killed. And he was in the hospital for what should have been a routine lung drain. He had COPD. And they killed him while he was in there. And this is really hard to talk about. The man who has been disconnecting my chips checked the records and found that they had taken his soul and put it in one of those tanks with the intention of making a clone and rebodying him after he had forgotten about me. And basically using him as slave labor on Mars. There's a lot of people that's happening to. They're going into hospitals. They're going into convalescent hospitals. They're finding people in hospice, people who are dying, and they're taking tissue samples and they're taking their souls in these cages and they're creating clones and turning them into cyborgs and selling them to ETs. And it's just, they're trading human beings for tech.
Yeah.
That's what the entire economy of the breakaway civilization is based on, is selling human beings for tech. And I know that Star Trek based their Klingons on the Draco.
Yeah.
But when you talk to other ETs, we're the Klingons. Only we don't have any honor because we're selling our own kind.
Yeah.
We don't take care of our children. We kidnap them and turn them into slave labor. We don't take care. We actually create wars on our own planet so that there are refugees that can be kidnapped and turned into cyborgs and sold off world. This is horrid.
Mm-hmm.
There is no one in space that will help us as long as we are continuing to do this. And no one out there that is service to others looks at Earth and thinks this is a place worth salvaging, because we have elections. we're voting for this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what's recently happened with the Congress approving the Space Corps, that
Mm.
now it's a separate faction of the military, the Space Corps, out in space, that they have the authority to go out in space and do whatever they need to do to build out in space. So that's been approved, and Trump signed the order, and he talked about that space is the next frontier. We should be out in space. It's worth it to be out in space. Now we are already out in space with these military programs, the SSP, the ICC, Solar Warden, Mars Defense Force, Earth Defense Force, the Dark Fleet. They're already out there. Out there in space, on these Mars bases, on the moon bases. We're out there in space. So I'm just wondering, why all of a sudden are they Congress approving the Space Corps that was dismantled about 25 years ago, and now the order is back out to develop space for mining, for corporation operations. They want to militarize space again.
Okay, what I saw in that action was making Earth Defense Force legal,
Okay.
because it wasn't before. Under Obama, there was legislation that made it where ICC's mining of the asteroids was legal,
Yeah.
and where slave labor in space was legal.
Yeah.
So,
Until 2024. That's until that executive order is official, until that time.
okay, yeah. No, that wasn't an executive order. That was
No.
a congressional law.
Oh, okay.
That was a real thing. So what they've done is they've made the atrocities legal. So there's now immunity for the perps.
Yeah.
And, okay, those of us who were mind fractured and under programming, mind control, I don't think we should be held accountable.
No.
But the people who did the mind fractures and the people who were not under programming and gave the orders, those people should be held accountable.
Oh, yeah.
And the rest, how do you hold a 4-year-old accountable? I mean, come on.
You can't.
You know, even Corey Good was 6 when he was first taken into the programs.
Yeah.
We're not talking about people who were of legal age to consent. We're not talking about people who knew what they were doing. We're talking about people who had been through deep mind fracture and mind control techniques that make MK Ultra look like a cakewalk.
Yeah.
And those of us who are talking are targeted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's only by the grace of whatever deities that there are that I'm still alive after being shot 8 times. I know you have health issues that are unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
So, you know, as far as I know, none of the actual whistleblowers from our group are doing well.
No, and you have health problems too. So we both are not in optimal physical shape for the bodies that we're in.
I've had trolls on YouTube say, "Oh, right, as fat as you are, you were a pilot." Well, gee, that was how many years ago? You know, I've been back on Earth in this body for 50 some odd years. And when I was, well, it was in 1982, the age regression sickness hit. And by 1994, I was in endocrine shutdown, and they told me then I'd be dead in 5 years. So the fact that I'm not dead, I'm counting that as a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing what I can. The doctor that I had retired last year, and before he did, he said that there were 4 times that he thought I was going to die, was ready to start palliative care, and that I would suddenly miraculously get better. Well, what I figure is that they decided that they were going to put me through a partial regeneration so that I would live a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
But
you deserve to live. For all the troubles that you've gone, you and I, we deserve to live, and so do the other SSP experiencers and survivors of these programs. We have the right to live on this planet for whatever the rest of our life that is given to us, because they can't take our free will away. They have to return us eventually and let us live out this life semi-normally or normally.
They have not allowed me to do anything except exist.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I start doing pretty well, something else goes wrong. And people have looked at my life and said, whoa, patterns all over the place. What are you doing wrong? And it's like, I thought I was doing pretty good because I survived it.
You're doing pretty well considering what has happened to you, and I'm doing pretty well for what has happened to me. We're existing to survive and live as normally as we can in the society that doesn't always believe us, and we can't even talk about it openly with doctors or anybody what happened to us.
Oh no, I haven't talked to my doctor about it. I would not even go there. He was much older than I was, and that's why he's retired now. And his replacement is this scatterbrained, prejudiced, there's no way. In fact, I'm looking for another doctor. She's that incompetent. No, I wouldn't talk to anybody in the medical profession. I admin a group for targeted individuals, and generally speaking, the medical profession is complicit in their cover-up.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't, the individuals don't understand, but because they've given illness codes for what they call delusions, then we become mentally ill, even though what we're remembering is very real.
Yeah.
Because they can't wrap their heads around it, we're delusional.
Yeah.
No, since I started admitting these groups, I've started being contacted by people. It's like there's this huge number of people out there who have experienced this, and they're starting to wake up, and they've thought they were crazy all this time. And I've had people tell me that I've saved their life just by listening to their story and telling them, oh yeah, I know what that is. And given them links to where other people are describing the same thing. It's like, you're the first one that didn't tell me I was nuts. Well, you didn't sound nuts. You're not a harm to yourself or others. I mean, come on. Just because you remember things that aren't earth-based doesn't mean they weren't real.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time for people to realize there's a lot more been going on behind the scenes than anyone has guessed. And that those who have been speaking for decades, I mean, we're talking, Bill Cooper told us about it, what, 40 years ago? Michael Renz, he was same time frame. We've had whistleblowers the whole time. The whole time this has been going on, we've had people talking about it, and most of them have been treated as nutcases or killed.
Yeah.
Bill Cooper was killed. Phil Schneider was killed. Those are just off the top of my head. They've been hiding this for a long time. Now, one thing that I think is going to change things for us is the treaty with the tall whites is up in 2 years. And the tall whites are tired of being a secret. They want to be, they look enough like humans that they, unless you looked really close, they could pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to walk among us.
And the Nordics as well. There's a lot of Nordic species that are ET and look like us, and they're like, oh, we want to be out and about. Even the hammerhead sharks, the Runa, who I had dealings with, negotiations, they said, we don't want to be skulking around in your underground earth caves anymore. We want to be out and about and walking on your streets. And for us to be not, for people not be scared of us, how we look like. We don't care what we look like. We just want to be on your streets with the people. And just be like, no. You know, that hasn't happened yet, so you can't be out and about.
You should have shown them the videos that these fear porn people are posting about Draco hybrids. Oh my gosh. They look for every video flutter and say, oh, they're a hybrid. They're panic. Come on, guys. There have been reptilian hybrids among humans for millennia.
Yeah.
And they haven't eaten you yet.
The reptilians. I was abducted by the Black Drazo, who was like 14 feet, and the Sharab Invictus, who was 12 feet, yellow reptilian. They didn't eat me. Yes, they did genetically modify me and alter me, and caused a lot of health issues, but I was never food for them.
I was kidnapped by human beings, and the human beings did the research on me, and there were ETs involved. There were Draco, there were tall whites, there were Naga. In fact, when I was at Langley, there was a Naga who wore a doctor's coat, a white lab coat, and she was the only being of any kind who was kind to me while I was there. But I've dealt with Draco, raptors, mantids, Naga, tall whites, Zetas, the small gray androids, and those are the ones I can remember. And I've seen the Mars native humans from a distance. Never got up close to them that I recall. I've been dinner for Mars spiders. I still have nightmares about those.
Yeah, Tony Rodriguez talked about the huge critters on Mars.
Insects and spiders on Mars are huge. The native birds and mammals are really small, because they require more air and more food. But Mars is a little smaller, so things get bigger.
Yeah, the rats, it was mentioned that the rats came over on the ships, and now the rats are huge because of that, and nobody can get rid of them.
Well, rats used to come on human ships. That's what brought the plague to the New World.
Yeah.
Yeah, until humans take care of their vermin problems, they probably shouldn't be going to some of these places.
Yeah, I mean, you transfer, because you have your spacefaring ships that originally they built them out here in the underground bases and launched them into space. Now they're building them out on the Mars bases or in the space station, around the space station platforms. But before, when they build them here in the underground bases, the vermin would come into the ship and hitch a ride to wherever you're going with you in the cargo bays.
Yeah, or in the air ducts, or the ducting around the plumbing.
Yep.
Yeah, all those places. It's real easy.
Oh yeah.
But,
Can I ask you a quick question? Because
sure.
Somebody.
I might have an answer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is easy. I remember this week somebody posted in our secret space program group Donald Trump's speech of passing the ordinance law that the Space Corps is now. It was an order that was passed. And he was giving an 11-minute speech, and Buzz Aldrin is like,
I thought that was hilarious.
he's like, like, it seems like that was an orchestrated speech where Trump kept emphasizing space. And Buzz Aldrin's like,
well, there's a lot that Buzz knows that he's not allowed to tell.
seems like it. Like, what does he know? What do you think he knows?
I think he knows that NASA did go to space, that NASA faked the films that they gave the humans. All of us watched faked films, but that they really did go. Buzz was in the video from Apollo 20 where they brought back the body of they call her a space pilot, but I'm not sure she was a pilot. I think she was a prisoner, that's why she was left to die. They brought her back and her brain was melted, but I think they've cloned her, and I don't know if they were able to bring back her soul or not. But I saw a video where they used the film from Apollo 20 where they went into the old base that was on the moon. They described it as being like an airport terminal, and that there was gold dust everywhere. That's why NASA picked the places they did, because they could tell there was gold there. And that's why so much of the weight of what they brought back has disappeared, is because it was gold. and they don't want Earth people to know there are massive amounts of gold on the moon. Well, if they read the Sumerian tablets, they know there's gold on the moon. Come on. That's why they've gone to such work saying that Sitchin was lying, is because he wasn't. They just don't want people to know the truth. I'm not sure that the tablets are necessarily true, but I think Sitchin did a decent job of translating them. They were what the ETs at the time wanted the people to know. And every race has its propaganda. But yeah, I think Buzz knows about that. I think Buzz knows about Earth Defense Force. I think Buzz knows about the LOC. I'm not sure if he knows anything past that.
Well,
he knew about the ETs on the moon, because every one of them that went, they were harassed by ETs, and they were finally told not to come back because they set off a nuke.
Yeah, and he always wears this T-shirt, "Get your ass to Mars," prominently shown, like always the T-shirt. So I think he has been on Mars, and he's seen some of the bases, and he was one of the people who went to Antarctica again, and then was airlifted to a hospital because he supposedly had somewhat of a heart attack because of what he saw there. So I think he knows a lot, and he was like really squirming to say something. And those expressions were like a message, like, I know what this is all about. I need to grab that mic from Trump and just say something, but I have to keep it quiet or else.
Yeah, I think he's been threatened.
Yeah.
Most of us have been, in one way or another. And I don't know. I'll soon be 62, and at this point I'm like, what can you do to me besides kill me? And if you actually leave me dead, that might be a blessing.
Yeah, I wonder the same thing sometimes. If they attack me and I die, it's a blessing because I won't have to see all of this suffering and pain and hardship. And I'm only 32, so I should theoretically have the rest of my life, to live and enjoy my life. And yet, it's hard because of the health issues, the constant energy attacks, the doubters, the naysayers. Like people say constantly in comments on YouTube, you're mentally ill. You need to go back on your meds. You're crazy. You're delusional. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
And we have to have.
I did get upset about a recent interview that David Wilcock did, where that he said that we were all returned fine and in good health and no harm was done. And I'm like, what the hell? Come on. Nope. Not true. Not true. We're sent back. We're mind fractured. We have alters. We have programming. We have trigger words where that we can suddenly be used however they want to use us, whenever they want to use us. We're followed. We have no privacy. We're treated like crap by doctors who think we're hypochondriacs. We have this disease that nobody can figure out what it is or how to treat it. My doctor calls mine mixed connective tissue autoimmune disorder because he doesn't know what it is. He described it as being in between fibromyalgia and lupus.
At least he gave some kind of a disorder and a diagnosis. Some of those doctors don't even want to diagnose you. They're like, you should be working, you should be normal. Like, how come how come you have this disease that's unexplainable or disorder? Like, I just have it. These are the symptoms. These are the test results. Diagnose it already and let me live my life. you know, some people can't work full time. Some people have neurological trauma. They have disorders. So they need job
I have
modification or whatnot or assistance.
I haven't been able to work full time since 2009. Um, but that was because of an injury I had at work. I've had injuries in this life as well. Um, my first husband broke my neck in 1977, and it didn't heal properly. He wouldn't take me to the doctor for it because he had done it and he was afraid he would go to jail. And so it didn't heal right. It healed in the wrong position. It's given me fits ever since. And now I have arthritis in it, and it's pinching off my spinal column. So I've been having epidurals every 5 months. The last one was in December, and they won't give me any more because I'm now diabetic. So I'm looking at the titanium cage surgery.
Oh, wow.
That's the next step. I also have blown discs and a frozen sacroiliac joint that make walking difficult. And when I blew the discs at work, I went ahead and worked for another year. And then one day I came home, and it was almost a year to the day of when I had gotten hurt. And I sat down on the couch, and I couldn't move for 3 weeks. Lou, the man that keeps walking back and forth, he was working nights, and I was on the couch, and he would drag me to the bathroom so that I could use the toilet. And fortunately, I could still control those functions, but I couldn't move. And that lasted a whole 3 weeks, and I didn't know what caused it, and I didn't know what made it go away. And because I was that way, I applied for Social Security disability, and I got that without getting a lawyer or seeing their doctor. And those of you who are Americans will understand how disabled I was, because that is completely unheard of. I can now walk about a mile a day, and sometimes I have to stop and rest in the middle. But I'm in a lot better shape than I was then, 7, 8 years ago. But I've had a couple of heart attacks since then, and other issues, and I figure better for me to get shot at than some of you younger ones.
I get shot at too energetically. Like, I feel my joints in pain, my head in pain. I could feel it's an energetic blast at me. It's not just natural physical pain that goes away after like a minute or two. It's unnatural. So it's like, because they have these energy weapons that use EMF fields to blast you with it. It's
Oh yeah.
can't be seen, but it's waves, laser waves that are blasted at you, and people get fungus. You know, they have black little specks coming out of their skin. It's a special type of a fungus. Morgellons, yeah. It looks like fibers, black fibers are growing out of your skin.
If you look at those under a microscope, they're red and blue.
Yeah, exactly. That's not natural. That's the energy technology making you sick, because if you speak out where you shouldn't have, or you disclose something that's classified, they hit you with it, and you suddenly get an unexplained and despicable disease that there's no diagnosis for it. Exactly, and they treat you like you're like you have a mental disorder or something, and you're depressed.
Oh yeah, they wanted to treat my connective tissue disorder with Prozac.
That's
Yeah.
weird. Prozac is not for that.
They said it was for pain control.
Well, there's other better
And
things for pain
and
control than Prozac.
yeah, but exactly. They instead of treating it, they wanted to numb you out and forget about you.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've caught flack from other specialists. Well, you have this. Why aren't you on Prozac? And I said, because I refuse to take it because it makes me numb. I said, I'm not mentally ill. I don't need psych meds.
Yeah, same.
I said, you want to give me a pain med that works? Tramadol works. Yeah, I'll take that in low doses.
Mhm.
I don't take any major pain meds. I learned disassociation, and if I'm in a lot of pain, I will just disassociate and turn it off. The trouble with that is it makes me emotionally numb as well, and it cuts down on my psi abilities.
Mhm.
But so do the psych meds.
Yeah.
And at this point, I need the psi abilities to know when I'm being attacked and by who and defend myself.
Of course. Of course. It's human society is at a bridging point where we need disclosure, and we need it soon, so this whole thing doesn't drag out for millennium to come. But how can we get the disclosure? We are the disclosure. You and I talking, disclosing this.
We are the disclosure. We, the veterans of these unacknowledged special ops, we are the disclosure. More and more and more of us are remembering, and the governments are going to have to deal with it, and preferably not by just silencing us.
Yeah.
There are millions of people worldwide who are remembering. And it's not just the English-speaking countries, it's any nation that has nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that were taken for service. But you can have been in any country. If you were found to be exceptionally bright or have high psychic abilities, you could have been taken. Now, there are certain bloodlines, family groups, that they are treating us like, they're treating us like show dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're breeding us for psychic abilities.
Yeah.
And those families, mine is one of them, those families are subjected to, this is a multi-generational mess. Now, if you happen to, when Corey Good was first talking, he thought that he was picked on the basis of testing at school. Well, he probably wasn't. He was probably, I think he came out recently with talking about that his family had been involved in this somehow. But there are certain things that they're looking for. They're looking for descent from any royal household, any country. So if you're descended from a royal, if you're descended from certain native tribes, in the Americas, in Africa, anywhere, certain native peoples, because they had stronger metagene than the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Jewish heritage. Me too.
Yep.
If you have Rh negative blood or have a parent that does, if you have an IQ over 140, if they know who you were in a past life, and as someone who worked for them.
Or an ET, advanced ET species that's
Yes.
qualified to be in these programs. They want you. They'll take you happily.
Yeah, they'll come. You won't have a choice.
Yeah.
They, if you have a soul presence that is a bright light in 4D, and yes, their psychics do look for that.
Yep.
So you can be in a, pardon my expression, you can be in a white trash family where nobody has ever accomplished anything, and they will pick you because at soul level you're a bright light.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want that bright light against them.
Yeah.
The other thing is they do have, the chronovisor is a very real thing, and it was developed by the Vatican and shared with the CIA, and both of them have people, they have two sets of them, one with CIA and one with the Vatican, and they have people whose job it is to constantly look in the future 20 to 30 years and see who is going to mess with them, who is going to change things.
Yeah.
And they will pick up those people. And they're cleaning up their timeline by making sure they stop us. And that's probably why that they're still picking me up, is because the older I get, the more determined I am to expose them.
Yeah. And like people ask me continually, well, can you answer all of my questions? Like, what kind of ammo did you load on when you were on the Mars bases? What kind of weaponry did you use? I want to know what the ammo was, so when I go to Mars, I can do the same. Well, plasma rail guns. That's what the plasma rail rifles guns. That's what it was. That's the weaponry. Plasma rail, whatever. There's actually high yield bullets that shoot out of the rail rifles, and the plasma ones shoot out even plasma with the bullets, so it makes it a more high yield impact on the person that you're shooting at, because you're battle ready. What they do, the ones that are ICC, they're battle ready.
What we used in Mars Defense Force, and this was in 1990, so they're probably more advanced now, but we were using the tall white tech that they call a DEW, directed energy weapon. There are two types. One just hits you, and it's like being hit with a bullet, except that it's energy. And the other one, the other version of it, is somehow based on an iodine. I think they use iodine in how they produce the crystal.
Mm-hmm.
And it causes internal bleeding. Well, I was hit in the right kidney with one of those last August, and I've been having kidney problems ever since.
The ICC was using laser phaser technology like the DEW, where it's just energy blasts hitting you and you bleed or you die. So ICC uses that, and it uses the plasma rail rifles as well. It depends on what mission parameters, the purposes of it. If it's a quiet strike, they just use the laser technology, the energy beam technology to doesn't make any sound. It just hits you and you don't know what hit you.
Well, I've known each time what hit me. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I knew, the memory coming back or something. but I've known what hit me each time by the way it felt.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been subjected to them at some point. But no, they've got stuff that you didn't even know you're being hit. These smart meters that I have 4 of them on my wall, they have things in transformers now, the EMF fields with electrical wires, and where I live, they're still above ground. And the new Gwyn Tower things, those are all weaponry.
Yeah.
Those are all weapons. Those are microwave weapons. And the 5G phone system that's coming out, that's a weapon.
Yeah.
They can turn that on, and everyone within a mile or more, for the rest of the world, about 2 kilometers, about 2 kilometer radius, everything inside that can be cooked because those are microwaves.
Yeah. So don't put this up to your head. Put in your headphones into the jack and talk through the headphones. Don't directly go like this because it puts out heat and puts out EMF fields, so it can fry your brain, can give you cancer.
Those things, the field goes up to a quarter mile.
Yeah.
So just holding it at all, having one at all, is a danger.
Yeah, because it's a smartphone.
They're not doing the kidnap and mind fracture anymore. They're using the Wi-Fi to send as a carrier wave to the cell phone. Wi-Fi is a carrier wave straight into your brain.
Mm-hmm.
It does. You don't have to even be talking on it. Just having the Wi-Fi base in your home is enough. And they set it for your personal frequency because we each have one. And they're calling this synthetic telepathy, or voice to skull, or V2K.
Mm-hmm.
And this tech was rolled out in 1980, and it has just been gradually gaining steam. So we have a whole generation of human beings currently on the planet that have been programmed through their cell phones.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never carry this. I never have this thing in my bedroom. I never sleep with it near me. It's always turned off at night because I don't want the EMF signals and frequencies bothering me when I sleep. And it can cause health issues. So I just brought this phone in for an example. I thought we might talk about this. And I have a smartphone. So that's why I brought this into my room. I don't know. I just had an intuitive feeling that we'd be talking about it, and I needed this as an example. So that's why this thing is here as the example.
I normally use an EMF blocker cap, and I don't have a cell phone. I do have a Wi-Fi on my modem. I couldn't get one without it.
Yeah, unfortunately, you need Wi-Fi for Skype. You need Wi-Fi for Zoom. You need Wi-Fi for even for Google to do these interviews or just to speak to anyone. These days, it's all on Wi-Fi, so you need it.
I'm still plugged in on a wire.
I'm on a cable. This one is not Wi-Fi on my computer. It's on a cable, which is better. It's not on a modem. So the modem is 2 rooms down. I'm on the cable, but this is unfortunately on Wi-Fi because you need to, or it won't work. So, and I don't use my phone often. It's just if you go out, it's for health reasons. I need a cell phone so if I need to call somebody for help, I can. So I carry a cell phone with me.
Yeah. generally the person I would call for help is with me, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a necessity. Like, I can't even wear a medical bracelet, like the metal or the nylon, because it chafes my skin and I get an allergy. So that's why I have the cell phone with the emergency phone numbers of everyone I need to contact if something happens to me or if I need help, because I can't wear the medical bracelet.
Yeah, I've thought about wearing a medical bracelet and then thought, you know,
What's the point?
um, the local hospital is Adventist Health. I probably shouldn't name them, but I did. When I started remembering the SSP, I had a spiritual awakening that went with it. And when I changed my religious listing from Christian to other, they went batshit. And I think my file is red flagged. But my insurance insists on taking me to the closest hospital, which would be them. So I'm pretty sure that if I had something catastrophic, that they would pretend to treat me and let me die.
Hospitals are notorious for just letting people go, just letting them go, and people die in hospitals. Just, that's statistical facts, because they're overcrowded, they don't have enough funding, they actually don't have cures that cure you from life-threatening diseases, unfortunately.
No, they don't. The money is not in curing you, the money is keeping you as an ongoing patient.
Yeah.
And there seems to be no interest in cures. And so, I don't know. The doctor that retired said that he was mystified because he had no idea why I kept getting better.
Well, why shouldn't you get better? The secret space programs have the cures for almost anything. They have the holographic medical pods to bring you back from dying. The goop tanks with the green or the black goop or any other color goop. They dump you in. They regenerate you. You're dead, but you've been regenerated and you're back to living. So they have all of that. They have the cures for almost anything, and they can bring you back.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they could bring that tech to Earth and cure everything. They also have the tech to repair genetic diseases. They can fix anything. They just don't have the desire to, because there's no money in it.
Yeah.
They would rather keep us poor and sick and ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
And let them do what they want to do. And I get frustrated because there's so many people that are happy with that.
I can't imagine why.
Well, the government's always been good to me. You know, you should hear some of the things I get told around here. Oh my goodness. I live in a village of about 1,500 people tucked into an oak forest, and it's a very blue-collar area, and people don't think. They go to work, they come home, they have a beer, they watch TV, they go to bed. On weekends or holidays, they play their music loud, smoke pot, because it's legal here. And once in a while, we'll get somebody that works on their cars and makes a lot of racket. Generally, not thinkers. If they are thinking, they're not talking about it. I talked to one of the neighbors about that it was possible, but we already had people in space. And he completely flipped out and said, well, I would want 3D evidence for that. Alrighty. Like the government's gonna send any of us back with evidence to convict them.
Nope. The best I could get for evidence was the triangular craft hovering above my house. I got a lot of pictures, and I've been posting that everywhere, trying to say, well, that's the only 3D evidence you can get. And the only reason why I got it is because they would beam me up through the drop ship. The drop ship comes at night from 2 to 4 a.m. It hovers above my house, and it beams me up from my bedroom for whatever missions. If they're taking me in my human body, if they're picking me up, they'll beam me out of my room to the drop ship, and they're still hovering above my house monitoring me, even though they're not picking me up, because I said, you do not have my permission for any of this. I do not consent, so you can't take me anymore. So I've said I don't give consent as well. But they still like to hover and monitor me and see what I'm doing. So I'm like, snap, snap, pictures. Here you go. That's the only evidence I have. Take it or leave it.
The only evidence that I have is when remote viewers are able to pick up on what I did. And that is not considered evidence by most of those people. They consider that to be psychic woo.
Yeah.
And never mind that the government uses remote viewers, and the people in our group that do it were all trained by the government.
Yep.
But yeah, okay. Well, we don't know what we're doing. We're just trained by the government to do this stuff.
And we do it. And some of us put it out there because this stuff should be disclosed.
This stuff needs to be told. People need to know what's going on. If they wish to bury their heads in the sand, well, don't watch our videos.
Exactly. And, like, what I've noticed in this disclosure community, most of the, there are individuals out there that are in the spotlight, and they're not accepting of us. We're on the fringe telling our stories. We're the experiencers. And I use my own platform for disclosure. I'm not affiliated with anybody. And I'm never going to be, because I don't want to be pushed out by anyone. When people come and talk to me like this, I try to show compassion, I try to show fairness, and I listen to your story. I'm open-minded. I listen to your story. Some of the insiders are not willing to do that, and neither are the researchers who are writing the books about this stuff.
What I've seen is that they're making too much money, and we're a threat to that. The researchers have not experienced it, and a lot of the experiencers have not researched. I know you've researched.
Yeah.
I know I've researched because I had memories. I didn't know what the hell these things were. And I did, if it weren't for the researchers, I wouldn't be able to tell my experiences. So I do appreciate them a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Um, what gets me are the experiencers that don't want us cutting in on their action.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not going to conferences. I'm not being a big speaker. I don't have the money to go to the conferences. Sure, I'd love to go meet some of these people real world and see if they'd be willing to talk to me. But my feeling is that most of them wouldn't. Most of the big names. I mean, we know what happened to, we had 3 relatively big names that were in the group, and they've all left because we didn't tell the things that they wanted told. They wanted to keep it all love and light. And this isn't a love and light story.
No.
This is a story of people who are misusing their power and misusing their abilities, and who are selling their fellow humanity into slavery for advanced tech, for themselves, because humanity's certainly not getting the benefit of it.
No. And we're the survivors and the veterans in this group, so our stories are not all love and light. We have some dark experiences that we share out there, and we talk about it in the group.
The love is we're supporting each other.
Yes.
And the light is we survived it.
Yes.
And we're here to tell what the assholes are doing.
Yes. Yes.
And expose it.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to just go in and just stop it. But I can't do it by myself. And that's why I keep talking, is to expose the horrors. Expose what these people have been doing since, they've been doing it in America since 1952.
Yeah.
I know with the Germans, they started in the 1920s. I don't know when they started in other countries. Most of the research has been done on the Germans and the Americans. So I don't know what the other nations have done. But I know it's not just them. I know we have people in the group that are Russian. And you were Russian.
Yes.
And you've gone through the same things.
Yeah, I even lived in Israel. So, and that's a hot spot for the programs. Russia is a hot spot for the programs.
So it's not like there's when you're chipped, when they have your mind frequency, they can find you anywhere on the planet.
True.
There is no hiding from them. There is no escape.
No.
If you were lucky that your agency is respecting your free will and leaving you alone, because Kruger isn't. Kruger is still taking me. I still get taken almost every night. And I come back and I know when I've had a particularly bad mission, because I'm diabetic. I take my blood sugar every morning. I'm not messing around with my diet. I'm not playing games. But if I haven't been on a mission, my morning blood sugar is in the 120s. If I have been, it's in the 160s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can look at my morning blood sugar record and tell how often I'm taken. And that's scary.
Yeah. And when they used to take me, I would have vivid memories of the missions.
I don't remember them all. Um, the missions are just some of the ones that I've remembered have been pretty bad. Lots of battles, lots of fighting, or with the shuttle pilot, it's just mindless days, months, years of just back and forth.
Yeah.
Just watching out for the space critters.
Yeah, for me, it was almost always working on the ICC Mars bases, on Mars itself, in data centers, and just collating data, encrypting, decrypting data, translating languages, entering a lot of stuff into their databases. Sometimes they'd ship me out into the orbital space station platforms above Mars. To see what was going on between air traffic space, that data, to check that stuff. They had me on other ships outside of the solar system for assassin training on other planets, weapons training, actually infiltrating the original Mars colonists on Mars to spy on them and to try to get them off the planet so the ICC could take over Mars. Working with different ETs.
That's what happens. The Germans set up everybody to have a competitor, and they did that for efficiency. But what you end up having is this cutthroat, like you said, they're trying to take the original colonists off of Mars. You know, why?
Yeah, and it's also
Why?
and now the United States is heavily involved in the ICC as well, so it's not just Germans. I saw on the bases Canadians, Americans, Germans, almost from every country. There were assets on those bases that were participating in the ICC. And Spanish was talked heavily. I talked in Spanish half of the time.
Okay, my German fleet alter spoke only German, and there were uniform colors based on your country of origin. I was considered officially to be U.S. Navy on loan to the German fleet. And I don't call them Dark Fleet. That was Corey Good's term. I mean, come on. You know, Germans don't call themselves Dark Fleet. In World War II, the elite was called Waffen SS. That was Waffen Schwarzen Sonne, or Weapon Black Sun. Or in English, it would be the Black Sun's weapon. And when we went into space, and I say we because I served with them for 25 years, not because I agree with them. I am not and never have been a Nazi. But, I mean, come on, I'm a quarter Jewish. How could I be a Nazi? They call the translation of going into space is into the night. And if I could remember the declension of the stupid particles, I would say Ins der Nacht, I think is right. It's probably not. But we go into the night. The night is space. And so when they formed the section that I was in, they called it Nacht Waffen, or night weapon, or space weapon.
Yeah.
And they were taking off on that Waffen SS.
Mm.
I I can't fathom that Dark Fleet has become so popular, because it's just like any other. It would Their name would be in German.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be in English, and it would make sense historically. And Dark Fleet doesn't.
I remember it as Nacht Waffen Regir, Night Weapons Roar. The Regir is in Spanish for roar. So that's what I remember it being called, like me saying that. Nacht Waffen Regir. And we spoke about it when we were talking about that name. And I said, I also remember something in Spanish. And I'm like,
Well,
Regir, what does that mean? That means roar.
hmm yeah, when we were talking about it in our admin's chat room, you brought it up then. But the ship I was on, everybody spoke German. We transported a lot of human slaves. We transported a lot of ET prisoners of war that were also converted into cyborgs and sold. Nacht Waffen works alongside the Draco Empire and does a lot of police actions for them and captures a lot of civilians. And that's what they do with the prisoners of war, is they convert them into cyborgs.
Yeah.
And it's just the ETs in the Draco Empire have come to see humans as more vicious than the Draco.
Yeah. And I remember I made the presentation about the ICC Mars Cybernetic Labs. And when I put that out, I also put pictures of the woman being strapped into the manacles with the skimpy bathing suit on or whatever. I had to put even a double layer of a bikini to cover up the nudity, because I know it's inappropriate in the groups to post that. So, and it went into my presentation, and people are like, that's so dark and heinous, and how come you're reporting on this? How come you're putting this out? It's part of the experience I remember while being on those ICC bases and remembering those labs, remembering the women being drugged, manacled, arms, legs stretched out, and men just touching the women and watching them while they were drugged in the state on ships and space stations, and just being left like that. And they always prized the women with the long hair.
That may be why I keep growing mine out. It's like it's down to my waist now.
Yeah, so people were like, this is heinous, this is disgusting what you're putting out, this presentation. I'm like,
But
yeah,
it's accurate.
yeah, it's
Well, actually, they were naked, so it's close to accurate.
yeah. and some of the slaves wore these electronic collars either on their neck, their hand, or their foot, so they can they could kind of electric shock them, electrocute them if they had thoughts of escape or tried to escape. They'd just go bzzz.
They had options to blow their heads off if they actually did escape.
Yeah,
Or did something to their owner or Nacht Waffen staff. I don't know if you guys would do that to them or not, but I've seen slaves have their heads blown off.
yeah,
I've seen commanding officers get fed up with somebody and just put them out the airlock. I've seen people killed in some pretty gruesome ways, and if they decided they needed the person, they'd put them in the into the green goo in the regen tank, and if they didn't, they'd just leave them.
Yeah, I remember the Neuralink implants that were in the brain, inside the brain. So the assets never had any external implants that could be seen. It was always internal. So if somebody misbehaved, the assets misbehaved or went against their superiors, their handlers, the implants would get activated and they would cause neural shock in the brain, and the person would drop. There would be blood coming out of their nose, and they would be shaking from the neurological shock and damage that they received in the brain. And they would shake there for like 20-30 minutes, and that was the punishment for doing something against your handlers, your superiors in the program. And then they'd stick you into the tank or just let you die.
Depending on how valuable you were to them.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with your intrinsic value. It had to do with your training, your abilities, and how rare those abilities were.
Yeah.
Some of us, I'm not sure percentages, but I know some of us were genetically modified. I was modified before I was even born. When I had regression hypnosis, that was one of the things that I asked about. And in regression, I was told I was given reptilian DNA and that I wasn't ready to know which race. So I was designed to survive the terraforming and to have enhanced psi abilities. And that was before I was even born. So that was in 55. Or because I was born in October of 55. So, yeah, they were doing this then. And so a lot of us have been modified.
Yeah.
A lot of us. And the people that survived and have been sent back, and a lot of them weren't. We have these abilities, and now we're starting to remember, and I've been working at gaining control, because when I first started remembering, it was because a code word had been used on me, and it was for Wizard of Oz training. And this guy that was a retired NSA agent used a CIA code word on me, and that was when I started remembering, and my abilities came back. And it, not all of them, but some. And I was doing all sorts of weird things that I didn't know what I was doing or how I was doing it, and I've actually had to work at gaining control so that I could use it when I needed it and I wouldn't hurt anybody. And it's been a challenge. Most of the abilities that they gave me have been weaponized, and learning to not accidentally hurt people it's been 4 years, and I've gotten to where I'm pretty confident that I can control it most of the time.
And also, you have to be willing to examine the memories and basically understand what happened to you, and also to not freak out about it, to take it in stride as much as you can.
I freaked out a lot. I freaked out a lot. I would just sit and sob for days. I would sit and shake. This has not been an easy path regaining.
Yeah.
No.
It can be very traumatic when at first you start remembering, and you have to come to grips with it eventually and understand what's going on.
Yeah, you do. And you have to work at it. You can't just say, well, this happened, let's forget about it. Because the longer you forget about it, it'll keep coming back.
Yeah.
And it gets more insistent each time. And you might as well deal with it when it's little.
Yeah, of course, face it head on. Like, work through it so the emotional pain and trauma don't just stick to you every day of what you remember. You have to work through it and understand it, and just say, yes, it happened to me. I need closure. I need understanding. I can't let this take over my whole life forever.
Well, when I first started remembering, I was still Episcopalian. And for the rest of the world outside America, that's Anglican. Or as my little brother called it, Catholic Light. But I went to the priest because that NSA agent had a heart attack and was in a coma. And when I realized he was dying, something came up from inside me and rose up. And I basically roared like an animal. And he came out of his coma. And I didn't know what I did. I didn't know what it was. I knew I had done it. So I went to my priest. And I tried to tell him about it and ask him, what was this? What can I do about this, And he backed up from me like I was contagious and excommunicated me.
Because it's not the norm.
And I was like, alrighty then, I'm on my own. And Lou, the man I live with, is Iroquois, which is a Native American tribe. And he is partially trained as a shaman. The person who was training him died before it was completed. And so he's been helping me figure out how to use soul fragment retrieval techniques to deal with this. And that's the approach that I've been taking to the altars. Most of the altars that I've reintegrated have been holding trauma. They haven't been people. A lot of these memories have been really difficult to live with. Most of them were from my mind fracture time. And yeah, people who think this is easy should have to live through it.
And I've taken the same path as you. I actually studied Native American shamanism with a Métis shaman. I learned how to do past life regression. I learned how to do soul retrieval. I've done it on myself and I've done it on others. I used to work as a shaman practitioner and as a health practitioner until my health destabilized where I could only keep one job. So I had to step back from 2 jobs from the healing job because I couldn't take it energetically anymore. But I still practice the shamanism on myself to reintegrate my soul shards back together through the soul retrieval. It's like coming back from the shoals back onto the shore and having yourself together again. Bits of you come back to you and reintegrate as a oneness, as a wholeness, and then that's for the health stuff, and having your memory and soul come back to you as well, so you're emotionally healthy and physically healthy as best as you can be.
Yeah, that's a good description of it. But it takes a lot of inner work. It takes a lot of time alone. It takes a lot of time in trance.
Yes.
I don't use drugs to get there.
Me neither. No.
I found that I didn't need them, and I think it's part of my programming to not use them. I'm also very sensitive to drugs.
Me too.
So tiny doses are all I need in the first place. In fact, the last surgery I had, they almost killed me. I told them ahead of time I was sensitive to drugs, and they gave me a normal dose anyway. So my body doesn't filter them properly.
Mine either.
And so a quarter of a normal dose will do, and it'll last twice as long as they expect it to.
Yeah.
And I told him that ahead of time, and he didn't listen. I'm also allergic to eggs, so he gave me an egg-based one. It made me wonder if he wasn't trying to kill me. Especially since I had expected to go into that surgery under local, and all of a sudden I was under general, and I was like, wait a minute, this isn't what I was told. Well, we decided it would be better. Okay. And, yeah, a lot of that stuff happens too.
Yeah. When I had my surgery on the hysterectomy, I specifically said no Ativan, no for that anesthetic to be, because they put me completely under, for the lowest dosage of anesthetic that they could give me, like the lowest. So they did. They actually, I wrote it down. They had me write it down as a release form, what I wanted. Without the release form, they would have given me the full dosage if I hadn't signed the release form. So it had to be in writing, that low dosage of anesthetic to put me completely under, but very small, because I don't respond well to meds as well. And I also said to them, I can't take the opiates to lower the pain and the inflammation after the surgery. So they had these little quarter pills for me to take, not the whole horse pill, because I can't handle huge doses of opiates of any type.
I can't either, and the last time I had a major surgery, I came out and I was in pain, and I asked them for Demerol instead of morphine, and they said, why? And I said, because I don't respond well to morphine. I end up trapped on the other side. And they were like, what? And then they said, well, if you'd rather have Demerol than morphine, we're going to be happy with that. And I'm like, okay.
Good. I mean, at least they listened to you in that instance and gave you what you needed, instead of deciding, oh yeah, we'll just give her whatever we think is good, despite her being allergic to this stuff, and it could cause her more harm than good.
Yeah, I can have some things, but not others. And sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. And you know, you're stuck with it.
Yeah.
And you would think that they would listen to a person, but they don't. They think they know everything.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of trouble lately dealing with people's egos. It's like, you're here to take care of me. You're not here to tell me what to do. And I'm old enough, I've been through enough of it already. It's like I'm tired of fighting with people.
Yeah.
I've suffered through this every time that somebody insisted on their way and I was too powerless to affect the outcome. And I've been the one that suffered. And example, when I had the last heart attack, I had to have a chemical stress test. Well, my veins are bad. And the tech they spent 3 hours and had to get an ultrasound machine to find a vein that would hold the IV. So she injects the radioactive dye and blew my vein completely. She went, blew my vein. She refused to take out the IV because they would need it again.
Oh my.
Meanwhile, I'm on the EKG. The cardiologist is standing there with the EKG machine. I'm going into the vagus nerve response to pain. The cardiologist is completely freaking out because he says, well, I've heard of it, but I've never seen it on an EKG before. He had to order her to take it out twice.
Wow.
And afterwards, because this is the Adventist health system, she wouldn't let me leave.
Wow.
She had to pray with me first.
Oh my goodness.
This is just the bullshit we go through at this hospital on a regular basis. Lou had surgery for a common older man's problem. And because this hospital is so filthy, he ended up with MRSA in his bladder post-op.
Oh my God.
And yet, this is the best we've got here. It's the only hospital in the United States that has ever been shut down for C. difficile. It was so contaminated that they had to build a new building and tear the other one completely to the ground. So what did they do? They took all the stainless steel stuff from the old surgery center and brought it to the new one. Yeah.
And then you have the old problem again in the new building.
Exactly. And the surgery center is shut down about half the time because of infection control problems. And yet they have this big old sign up about how they're an award-winning wonderful site. And I'm like, I don't think so. I'm not going to have surgery with you guys again.
When I was having my hysterectomy surgery, I was having to choose the specific doctor that I wanted, the specific hospital that I wanted, look at all the ratings, choose very carefully. Like every time I see a doctor, I had to do all my own research about what I want in terms of testing, Like, they'll not suggest anything to me. I have to suggest what I want, where I want to go, which facility, what testing I want, what parameters I want. So now, before every doctor's appointment, I prep everything. So I say, I want this, this, and this. This is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on with me. This is what I need.
You have a different healthcare system than we do.
Yeah. But I still have
Okay.
to struggle.
What I have is I have a main care provider. And at this point, she is a nurse practitioner. She's not even a doctor.
Oh, wow.
She is the gatekeeper for who I get to see. And if she doesn't think it's necessary, it won't get done. And she told me, even though I'm in endocrine shutdown, she told me there was nothing wrong with me, that I was just fat and sedentary. Now, the old doctor had already allowed me to go to the pain center. The pain center I see an osteopath. He's a regular MD that's also trained in chiropractic. And so he's the one that's been giving me the epidurals. Well, he said that when the epidurals no longer work, that I need the titanium cages. Now, he's the gatekeeper to see the surgeon. And so I'll be seeing him sometime this month. I forget the exact date. But after that, I will find out when, if I get the surgery, or if they're going to start doing epidurals again. Because the pain levels have gone up enough that I had to up the meds for the Addisons because I was shocky.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to, when you have Addison's and diabetes, it's like this balancing act. And if you're under stress, it will throw the Addisons off, and then the meds for that mess with the diabetes, and then that's why I haven't got good blood sugar.
Yeah, and you can go into anaphylactic shock and lose consciousness and go into a coma. You can lose your limbs with diabetes. You can lose your eyesight. You can become blind because it's an autoimmune disorder.
You see, I have to wear glasses to see the computer screen.
Yeah.
I
have to wear glasses too.
Like without them.
I have to wear glasses too because my optometrist told me my vision is that of a 60-year-old, and I can't wear the glasses because it's too much eye strain and I get a migraine, and then I go into shock. So I have to practice my vision, focus my vision so I can see properly without the glasses. I do eye training, like exercises, because I can't wear the dang glasses. So it's like...
Yeah, I've done the exercises. I started off with reading glasses when I was 14. And they were 1.27 then, and I had to have them made because they weren't the 1.25. And I'm in 1.5s now, so I haven't done too bad. I have a lot more trouble seeing without glasses now, though.
I just bear through it and try my best to see without glasses because the glasses make it worse. So I'm like, you know what? Work with what you have. Try your best to practice to see clearly and to just do it. Get on with it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing, is just I roll with most of it. I'm not in as good a shape as other people my age, but I have an autoimmune disorder.
Me too. I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
Yeah.
Which is not easy. Like, I take the desiccated thyroid to control it, but what they don't...
We can't get that here.
That's horrible.
I have to take Synthroid. because we don't get the desiccated thyroid here. That's you have to go to an alternative healer to get it, and my insurance won't cover them. And I don't have enough money to cover everything.
I understand.
And no, I'm not asking people for help. This is the facts.
Oh, yeah, it's the facts. I was prescribed Synthroid, and it felt like my stomach was being torn apart. It was so painful. Like, I'm allergic to Synthroid, turns out. So I had to beg to be put on the desiccated thyroid.
Yeah, I think I would be a lot better off if I were on it. But I'm hoping that if I have the next surgery, that will take care of the worst of my issues, and that I'll be able to function almost normal.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes even trying to get the surgery that you desperately need because you're bleeding out when you're not supposed to be bleeding out. And people
One of my sisters had that.
Yeah, and people are like, you're normal. There's nothing wrong with you. All the tests are fine, but I'm bleeding out heavily, and I'm not supposed to be bleeding out like this. And I said, I want a hysterectomy. I'm a 29-year-old woman. I know what I want, and I know what I don't want. I'm not in my genetic predisposition health-wise was on my father's side was not that good, health genetics. So I knew I wasn't going to be having children because I didn't want that stuff passed on to kids. So I said I need a hysterectomy because I can't bleed out and die.
Well, I was stupid and I had 3 kids. They have a genetic disease related to adrenals. But they've all grown up. They're in their 30s and 40s, and I have grandkids that are probably carriers, but they're normal. And this particular genetic disease, the carriers have high intelligence. And my grandkids are definitely the rule on that. They're giving my son and his wife a run for their money. But, hey, I worked really hard to keep those kids alive and keep them as normal as possible, and they're all self-supporting adults. None of them are in jail. They're not on drugs. So I didn't do too bad a job.
There you go. You did the best you can with what you're working for. And like, I knew that I couldn't have kids because like I could physically, but the genetic markers were not good. So I was feeling crappy because of the bleed out. So I said I had to go through 4 different doctors before I found my 5th doctor that would agree to do the hysterectomy because I prepared everything correctly. And
yeah, that's part of why I got Social Security without a fight, was I made sure I went to the same set of doctors. I knew I wasn't in good shape, and once I moved to this area, I just stayed with the same doctors. The only reason that I'm changing my gatekeeper doctor is because she's so incompetent. You don't tell somebody with Addison's that they're just fat.
no.
No.
It's all about your paperwork, having the medical evidence to prove what is going on with you. You have to catalog everything. It's like being a lawyer, really. You have to follow the paper trail and have everything organized down to the last piece of evidence to get approved for anything these days.
And when you go to a doctor that won't read the paper trail, then it's time to change doctors.
Exactly. And I know my doctors, they're decent, so I'm keeping them. And I'll do whatever I have to protect my health and myself to live.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm tired.
Well, we've been doing an interview for 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're gonna
Oh
about to
my
hit
gosh.
3 hours because we've covered so much information about what happened to you, and it's just I have never like we've done a roundtable together, but I never heard your story the way your full story with the time provided to do it all here.
Yeah.
And what's happening, like I think this was the perfect timing for this interview because what's happening out in the world
Mm-hmm.
with this military space corps being
Mm-hmm.
signed, with stuff being leaked about Mars, about the slave labor, about that Mars base. It's all coming out in slow leaks of disclosure. So this ties in what we were talking about today in this interview. It brings it in together because you witnessed the cybernetic labs, you witnessed the slavery, you were part of this sex slave torture, you were part of all of it. You've seen
Mm-hmm.
all parts of it. So, and I've seen the cybernetic labs, so we've had some stuff overlapping because I was also drowned in the Monarch Solutions programs to train me, to toughen
I'm
me up.
sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I'm used to it. Like continually drowned to remove the pain barriers so they could get me to do anything and everything. So we have the drowning, we have the cybernetic labs, we have the part where we were both on Mars, so it really overlaps. And I wanted this to
Mm-hmm.
be your interview, to tell your story openly without judgment or whatever. And it all fits together what we've discussed and what's going on out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it just brings it all together.
Yeah. The trouble is there's so many of us. So many of us.
Yeah.
It's
And
it's bad enough with one or two people, but when you're talking millions, it's horrific.
yeah, and you have to have these independent platforms where you can do interviews without judgment, where people will actually take your story and listen to you openly and not say anything about you, just let you tell the story as it is
Mm-hmm.
and let you discuss it and not insert themselves into your life story. That's very important.
Yeah. I'm still working on recovering memories from the altars.
Hmm.
And there may be more things later, but I think I've got the basics.
Hmm.
Um, the basics of who those people are. Those people. They're me, but they're me, but they're not me. We don't share memory.
Yeah.
We're starting to. Um, Penelope Valkyrin didn't even speak English. Um, that's made recovering her memories really difficult. Uh, the others did speak English, so I at least had more of an idea of who they were, who they worked for, what their job description was, and what their modifications were.
Yeah. I spoke
So,
Yeah, I spoke English too and Spanish in the program, so that definitely makes it easier to understand what happened when you speak the language that you speak now.
well, I studied German in high school,
Okay.
um, so I understand some of it, but my God, that was 1974 was the last time I took German.
I
That's a
can
long time ago.
Yeah, it's like almost 15 years for me when I took Spanish. So when the memories are in Spanish, the event recall is in Spanish, I have to concentrate to understand because I'm not very fluent in Spanish right now. It's there, but
Well,
it's dormant.
I wasn't fluent in German in this timeline. In this life, I was not fluent in it. I got to where I could read it at about third grade level. I was speaking at like a 4-year-old. So I wasn't fluent at all. And she uses more of a jargon than standard. And she cusses a lot. I mean, I cuss a lot, but I'm not using it to cuss at people. It's part of my vocabulary.
Yeah.
She cussed at people. She swore at people. She would ride people. She was so abused as a child on Mars because she wasn't fully human as far as they were concerned. She was a psi weapon and they were scared of her. And she was there without parents. And so there was no one willing to take up for her. So she became aggressive in response. And that was her core personality. She was a Valkyrie. That was her identity. She was one of the women pilots in their unit. They were called the Valkyries, and she was one of them. And she was a warrior, and she was aggressive, and she didn't take crap from anybody. She even stood up to Draco. But because she knew enough to not attack them, she just wasn't afraid of them. And they found that intriguing. That's the best description I could put it. You know, who does she think she is? She's not afraid of us.
Yeah. And they actually value when you stand up. And you're like,
Yeah.
They value that because their warrior class, they respect it when you're not subserviently submissive. You speak up enough for yourself to not be killed, but you don't pass the boundary line where you will be killed, so to speak, sort of like that midway point.
Yeah, you're not a kiss ass, and you're not afraid of them, but you're not being disrespectful either.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how you survive in that environment working with ETs. You find that mid-level point and you coexist with them, so you stay alive.
I started the serious reintegration work with her last September and October, and I warned Lou that it was an alter reintegration, and he survived it. Because my core personality, I do have a strong ethical compass, but I'm kind of laid back. And so to have this aggressive person reintegrating with me it was a struggle there for a while. And there was self-destruct programming with the altar, and there was harm the helper programming with the altar, and I did a regression hypnosis with James Rink on April 2nd. We were accessing the Kruger shuttle pilot. And we ran into a booby trap on that one that was visual as well as programming. And it was, everything just went blood red on me. And he was able to back me out of that and go around it. And I want to give him props for that, because that took skill.
Mm-hmm.
The woman who had done my initial regression hypnosis had not even considered booby traps. So James was very, very careful with that, and I got to give him props. So, but yeah, we were trying to get me with a clear enough memory of him from that altar to be able to help an artist draw him as a super soldier.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the altar that knew him. And so, because when I first met him online, it was, I know you. I have seen you. I know you, you know, and I don't know where I know you, but I know you. And he was like, and as we spent time, it's like, okay, I've seen you as a super soldier. You were taller, you were bulk, you know. Well, yeah, he was in a clone that hadn't been starved like his real body had been. And so we got the drawing. It came out really good. I haven't seen the colorized version, but the black and white sketch from it came out primo.
And speaking of drawings and images, about 3 months after we did a round table with you, me, Lindsay Hooper, and James Rink, I found an image of a woman with short blonde hair in a white uniform dress holding a gun, strapped gun, that looks exactly like Lindsay Hooper, and I sent it to her. She's like, well, I'm not surprised. I think we all kind of knew each other in these programs. So there's remnants of artistic likenesses of us out there floating, because people will remember something with the programs. The artist who did that representation, that image, that wasn't even of Lindsay. She didn't commission it. It was just some random thing I found on the internet, which looks exactly like her right now with the short haircut.
Tomas from our group. And I'm not giving his last name because I'm not sure he wants it out there. But he does CGI art now. And he's really good at it. He's working on a couple of projects that are SSP related, and he's finding that when he draws characters, that they're people that were in the SSP, and they come out looking like they did in SSP. And some of them he knows who they are real world. And he's gotten frustrated because he has trouble drawing people who aren't in, you know, he has trouble drawing actual fictional characters because of that. And he's working on a project that is still very private. It will eventually be published. But he's come across several of us from the group that he's been able to remember what jobs they did. And that was There was one that was a medic at a space station that he worked on, and another was an administrator on that space station, and he was basically a mechanic that did repairs, maintenance on the station. So drawing them helped him remember what role he played. So yeah.
I actually found an image of what looks like Anthony Zanders, the guy who does the MMA fighting. Because he contacted me and he said, "Do you remember me from this mission?" I said, "Yeah, I kind of remember you. Yeah, I have." Like, we didn't do an interview about it, but we did talk a lot. And then I found the images from that mission. I found what he looked like in the light armor suit. So very close. And these are just images from the internet, but I say, I want to see this person in the mission that they were in, and I find the image when I do a specific search for a specific phrase of what I'm looking for. And it's interesting that somebody else has drew these people as what they look like during their missions. And those people have no idea, that artist has no idea what they drew or who they drew. It's just the social memory aspect is there. It exists on Earth's library.
Well, then there was the one that was you in a flight suit.
Yes, yeah.
That one was obviously you.
Yeah.
Absolutely no doubt in my mind. That person knew you.
Yeah. It's and I put those images all in the presentation and described the mission without naming names, because I just, Anthony was just starting to remember it. So I just thought, just describe the mission and put in the images of the people and let them describe what they remember from it. But Anthony has talked about a lot of his memories, so I think it's fine to say it now. That me and I were in a mission together. I'm not going to go into detail, but the imagery of these people who contact me, sometimes I find their likenesses on the internet.
Yeah, I work pretty hard at not revealing the people that aren't public.
Yeah, same here. If they say it's private, it's private. Anthony and Lindsay are kind of public now.
Yeah.
So
they're both public, so is James.
Yeah.
The person who knows my, I think of her as Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica. That's the starfighter that works for Kruger. The person that knows her is not public. And will not be public because it would jeopardize his job.
It's understandable.
So I don't want to jeopardize him at all.
No, of course not. If somebody says it's private and it's discussed, but it's kept off air. I understand privacy and boundaries, and I won't go beyond what people are willing to share and explain.
But it's still helpful to know that I have this memory and someone else has confirmed it.
Yes. I mean,
and that's if we're remembering each other, then that gives it a higher probability of being real rather than just my dreams.
Yeah, that's true. And you have the Dulce, and you've had other people confirm what they saw match with what you described from the remote viewing. There were tall grays. There was an underground cave. It's in the presentation, and the earthquake machine was there. You were checking for earthquakes. It's like things just add up in points, informational points, to back up what you were saying, because you did what you did in real time. So it's there, and it's out in the public.
And people need to know that there are people with that capability.
Yeah. Your psychic ability is tremendous, and you did what you thought was right to do, and you did it. And you didn't hurt anybody that you weren't supposed to.
No, I made an effort to get people evacuated.
There you go. You covered your bases. You followed your gut instinct, and it turned out as it should have.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we've covered a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and this is a good point to end it at, I think.
Yeah. It is. I think we did good today.
Yes, we did. So thank you so much, Penny, for sharing your SSB experiences and your various other experiences. It's been a pleasure talking to you and getting your story.
Thanks. Thank you, Ileana.
For people to hear you and who you are and what you've gone through. And hopefully, like, it's going to be out there on public record. People can listen to it, ask you questions. How can people contact you if they want to talk to you?
Most have found me on Facebook. My wall is friends only, but I do accept chat messages from people who aren't my friends. They just need to send me more than just hi. They should start off with, I saw your interview with Ileana, and I would like to talk to you. I'm also in I'm in too many groups. I can't possibly even visit them all in a day and still do anything. So that's probably the best way to find me.
Yeah.
I don't have a website. I am writing a book, but it's nowhere near completion.
Okay. And a good way to also get to know you is through the Secret Space Program group on Facebook.
Well, it's secret now after Alfred attacked us. And so you pretty much have to know somebody in the group to be able to join it.
Yeah.
If you don't know someone in the group, you need to contact one of us and ask to join us.
Yeah, and it's important. Be respectful, be kind, compassionate, and understanding of what the veterans and the SSB went through and the experiencers.
This group is not meant for the curious. It's meant for experiencers. It's meant for veterans, and we are suffering from PTSD. We are not always pleasant. We have some really outrageous memories, and if you start telling us we're full of crap, we'll block you from the group.
That's part of our guidelines, and also do not be racist about the ETs, please.
Yeah, because they are no better nor worse than humans.
Yeah, that's another guideline we have, and no religious content and no paid for ads content as well. I'm one of the admins.
And no politics.
Yeah.
The first 3 months that we had that group, we had to ban so many people for getting nasty about religion or politics that had absolutely nothing to do with the SSP veteran experience. And they would get so vicious, and it was polarity and programming, and we finally just said, no, you post it, no. And even then we still had problems to where we have to moderate posts, and that's what Alfred got mad about, was because he said we were censoring things. We were just trying to keep the fights down to a dull roar.
Yeah.
And the people there, most of us don't make enough money to be able to go to any of these events or buy a bunch of stuff. There's no reason to target us with ads because we can't pay for it.
Yeah, it's fair. Every group has its own guidelines. And ours is don't be mean to each other. Please be respectful. No ads, no paid ads. No religion, no racial profiling of ETs. We don't care what
Or
ET
or
is.
humans.
Yeah, or humans. We don't care what ET it is, what background you come from. Just no racial profiling of any sort. No religion, no politics. Keep it to the SSP stuff because we're quite interested in figuring out the experiences we've had and others have had. That's what the group is about. It's the SSP group, secret SSP group.
It's meant to be a place for veterans to safely remember what they were involved in. And most of it wasn't pleasant.
No.
And we have a lot of people who were in German fleet. And it's not that let's get real. The German fleet runs the entire space program.
Yeah, there's pain, there's trauma involved, there's torture, there's mind control. So we work through all of that to lift layers and to remember and understand. So it's about no judgment.
And we don't tell you which group you worked for.
No.
We make you remember that for yourself.
Yeah, we're open-minded. We're not judgmental about what you went through or how it happened to you. We're there to listen as much as we can and still have our daily lives. The admins work very hard. I can see behind the scenes how the admins work because I'm part of it. And we all, try to do as much as we can. Sometimes one does more, others do less, is what happens in life. But everybody tries their best. In the group itself, the members, in the admins, we all try to be very respectful to each other and have a good group.
Oh, it's the best group of admins I've ever worked with, and I've worked in about 20 different groups.
Yeah.
It's definitely the best group of admins.
I can only be an admin in this group because I'm very busy in my life, and in this group resonates the most with me, so that's why I wanted to be an admin in it. And you guys invited me. I didn't even ask to be an admin. You invited me, and I'm like, yes, thank you.
Hey, you were special.
Well, thank you. You guys are special. Every one of us is special in our own way. And we have a bond of what we went through. Like, most of the admins have been in the SSP themselves. I've had memories.
I think there are, 9 or 10 of us, and only 3 were not veterans.
Yeah.
And they are all counselors. So we have veterans. We call it peer support. Is what it is. We do have 3 real counselors, but the rest of us are peer support. We've been there. Most of our admins were in German fleet. So we've been among the worst of the worst. There's nothing that you could have been used for that will shock us.
Yeah. For sure. Or nothing really shocks us that comes out in mainstream media news about pedophilia or anything. We've seen it. We've been through it.
We've been subjected to it.
Yeah.
So we're not shocked by things that we have experienced, and some of us have experienced more than others, and most of what we experienced in the secret space program has been horrific. Anyone who thinks this is romantic and they want to do it is barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah, it's not romantic. It's not pleasant. Don't ask to sign up with the secret space program. Trust me, you don't want their attention. It's not. No.
Or a man in one group asked me how he could become a cyborg.
no.
This is not something you want.
No, definitely not. I've seen how they're made. You don't want to be a cyborg. You don't want to be in the secret space program. It's not a romance. Like Penny said, it's not romantic. Some people have made it sound romantic, but it's not.
It's slavery, it's mind control, it's torture, it's doing things that to others that you would never, ever, ever want to do.
Exactly. It's basically a program soup where you don't get to basically rule your own life. You're being ruled by somebody else and being told what to do. So it's not a freedom type of thing. There's no democracy in the program.
No. You're not out there getting to do what you want to do. You're out there completely mind controlled. You don't have a thought in your head but what they put there.
Exactly. So your life is not really your own. You're owned by the program. And even when you're returned back into your normal life, your life is not really your own because they could take you at any time and do anything they want to.
And take you for as long as they want, as many times as they want, and do whatever they want to you over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
To infinity and beyond, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
they think we are property.
Yep, property that's theirs, whether we signed a contract for it or not. Some of us don't even sign a contract. We're just off the books assets and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it was or is or can be. So I would never want to go back full time in these programs into service, full service. I don't ever want to go back into it. And if anybody's lucky to ever get out of it and tell their story, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll end it at that. And thank you everybody for listening, and thank you, Penny, so much.
Thank you, Ileana.